A lot of people are scared to sharpen tungsten carbide because of its incredible hardness. It's not steel. So it is like 71 HRC. This stuff's insane, and it holds an edge for like as long as anything can hold an edge. So today I'm going to show you why you don't need to be scared of it anymore, and I'm going to show you how to easily sharpen up tungsten carbide, whether it's freehand or fixed angled, and we're not going to mess around. We're jumping right to it. Bang! Neeves Knives, I'm Jared, and today I'm going to show you guys how to sharpen tungsten carbide. What is tungsten carbide and why is it so special? So tungsten carbide is tungsten and carbon atoms mixed together, and then they use cobalt as a binder. Now that's for toughness. So the higher the amount of cobalt in it, the higher the toughness, but the lower the hardness it will be able to achieve. It's an incredibly hard metallic ceramic material. So it's basically a hybrid. It is basically a metal ceramic, which is pretty crazy when you think about that. So it's a hybrid between the two. Now, because of that, it has incredible hardness. So it is basically a 9 to 9.5 in hardness out of 10. Diamonds being a 10, the hardest thing. So it's almost as hard as diamond while holding more toughness than steel at the high HRCs. So at the higher hardnesses, it is going to be tougher. It doesn't mean it's always tougher, it just means at the higher hardnesses, it is tougher. Now, it's basically corrosion resistant or corrosion proof, and then it also is very resistant to heat, making it great for applications for drilling and saws and just basically anything that's going to cut incredibly hard things, you know, like rocks and other metals and stuff like that. Well, because of these attributes that it has, it is very, very, very good for sharp edges or for longevity of sharp edges. So when you make a knife out of it, it is going to be a blade that could outperform anything else out there. The only thing that could compare is ceramic. So if you have a ceramic blade, that's the one thing that can compete with it in edge retention. So we're talking about a massive amount of edge retention, which because of the hardness that it has, being able to achieve this longevity of sharpness and being able to cut for so long. And with such high hardness, this does make a lot of people a little bit scared to try to take it on for sharpening. Plus, it's not steel, so it doesn't act like steel. 3 rules that you want to follow when sharpening tungsten carbide that might not be necessarily true for steel. And all of these things we are going to discuss throughout the video, and I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. Number 1, always use diamond. That's very important, but what's even more important is that your diamonds are not very aggressive. They can be on the coarser side, leaning towards more of a medium grit, but never very coarse. You don't want a super aggressive diamond plate or diamond stone. Number 2, you need to learn and understand your scratch pattern. You have to chase the scratch pattern because there is no burr. You will not get a burr, so no burr. So in regular sharpening, when you're sharpening steels, you have the burr to let you know when you hit the apex. Not in this case, so you have to chase the scratch pattern. We're going to teach that in a second. And number 3, you have to take this to a finer grit. Whether it's a fine or ultra fine, that's where you want to kind of go to make sure your apex is nice and true and there's not too big of serrations. And with that said, I personally recommend using 1 micron and under for stropping. So I like to use stroppy stuff. That's my favorite. It's located on the Neeves Knife Co. site. But 0.25, 0.5, or 1 micron will work great. I personally don't like to go with a higher micron size. If you have like a 2 or 3, it'll be okay. But I prefer the lower microns when stropping. Now, if you're using fixed angled or freehand, this is going to be the same rules, but I'm going to assume right now that you at least know how to sharpen. If you do not know how to sharpen at all, because you definitely should not be learning on tungsten carbide, so I assume you know how to sharpen, but if you don't, I have hundreds of sharpening videos teaching you exactly how to sharpen step by step, from fixed angle systems to freehand. I have shorts, long form videos, very in-depth detailed videos. Go and check out my sharpening playlist. If I remember, I'll tag it or pin it in the comments. I personally would say the best thing you can use is a bonded stone. They're very expensive, so I know not everybody has these, but these are the best to use on a tungsten carbide blade. Whether it's hybrid or resin bond, I would not ever use metal bond. Don't use metal bond diamond. So if you have a bonded stone, you know, and it happens to be metal bonded diamond, don't use that. You don't want the tungsten hitting the metal, that's bonding the diamonds together. If it's a diamond plate, okay, diamond plates, you can use them, but do not use any new diamond plates. They have to be very broken in. Like, don't even use it if it's just freshly broken in. Break your diamond plate in really, really good. Do a bunch of sharpenings on them first before you ever put it on a tungsten carbide. And here is kind of the trick. One of the first tricks. So this is the first trick. You never start with a coarse stone. And I know that kind of seems like kind of backwards because you always start with a coarse stone. You don't with tungsten carbide, and that's one of the biggest problems people have, and then it chips to hell. Start with a medium grit to, maybe so if it's a bonded stone, because bondeds are not as aggressive as diamond plates, you can start with like a 285 or a 300 grit resin bond or a hybrid bond. I recommend the hybrids. These are my favorites, but resin bond's great too. Basically the same, but if you have bonded stones and you have a 300 grit or like a 285 or something like that, start there. I wouldn't go down to 160, I wouldn't go to 100, and I wouldn't go to 80. So start at the 300 grit. Now you can also start at a 550 or a 600. Either one of those will be just fine for you to start with. If you have diamond plates and they are broken in, start at 600 grit or 1000 grit. Do not go under 600 grit with a diamond plate to sharpen tungsten carbide. Now, the next thing is, we're going to go through this. You need to go through all the stones you have till you can get to a fine grit. I would say you want to take tungsten carbide between 3,000 and 5,000 grit is what you want. That's where the sweet spot is, in my opinion. Now, if you only have up to 2,000 grit, yes, you can do it, but you're going to have to do quite a bit of extra stropping. We'll talk about that in a second. So let's talk about the tricks, right? Now, freehand and fixed angle, it's the same thing in this case. Every rule applies the exact same. So I like I said, tons of videos teaching how to sharpen. Now, because tungsten carbide always has a big bevel, right? It always has a big bevel because they're typically thin blades with low angle edges. They're very easy to find the angle because you can always feel it, right? Like right there, you can see under the blade. So I haven't lifted the spine yet, so I'm obviously not on the bevel, but once I do, bam, right there, I can feel it touch. It's like hitting a wall because they're so big. It's like sharpening a Scandi grind. So this is the best case scenario for you to be able to not only find your exact edge angle, but to be able to hold it and maintain it. When you do, right? So when you're like, say if you're lifting, and you can feel that apex just touched, as soon as it just barely touches the diamond plate, hold that with your wrist and your forearm, and then as you're going across the stone, just use your elbow to get to the tip. And then when you lift up, don't move your wrist or your forearm, just drop your elbow. Your angle is still the exact same. Now, if you need to, you can literally just find your angle each time. I think it's better to lock in. Now, that's just a quick demonstration on freehand, but finding the angle is a little bit more trickier on fixed angled, just because it's not a feeling thing. You got to visually look at it. Okay, so we got it locked in here, but we don't have our angle yet. So this is important. This is a big bevel, right? So what you do is you basically lay the stone on the bevel and try to get it around the right angle, right? Try to get as close as possible, and then just do a couple little passes and look at where your scratches land. So right here, mine landed directly on the apex. You see that line? So that means we have too high of an angle. So now I need to drop my angle. Sorry, I'm going to move the camera around a lot. So now I'm going to check it right here and see where we're at. What we're looking for is we want the scratches to hit the top of the bevel, but we want to look for an identifier. So right now we look like we might be a little Oh no, we're still a little too high. We're still hitting the apex. Okay, now we are moving up, but we want to start at the top and work our way down. Okay, right there. Okay, so now watch the bevel right here. I shouldn't have wet it down. So when I take some passes, you can see the scratches are starting at the top of the bevel. We want to see them working their way down. If they're just making a line across the top of the bevel, then your angle's too low. What you want to see is you want to see them quickly working their way down. See how they're working their way down? You can see a little spot hasn't, you know, it's not going to go just from the top right to the apex, but it's going to start working its way down. So that's what we're looking for. And then as soon as it gets like that, then we know that is our edge angle. So now we can reprofile. Now this is going to be the same exact thing for the other side. We don't want to change anything now. Once we have that locked in, when we do flip over to the other side, we're going to stick with the same angle, even if it's not exact, because one side might be ground a little bit different. So that's just the way it works. So now what we're going to do is we're going to replace the bevel with our new bevel. So if there is a little bit of differences from one side to the other, we'll make them even. Once you find your angle, now you're going to work on your bevel. Now here is the next important part to know about sharpening tungsten carbide. You will not get a burr. There's no such thing as a burr with tungsten carbide. It's too hard. So what'll happen is it will just crumble and go away. Before it could ever grow, it will just disintegrate. So don't try to do that. Don't try, let me just use one of these. Don't try to develop a burr. Don't feel for a burr. There's no reason to even do that because you're not going to feel one. All you want to do is you want to look at the bevel. You want to stare at it and learn it and know it. Know exactly what it looks like. Know what your new scratches look like and watch your scratches. You want to watch them go from the top of the bevel down to the apex. And you don't want to work on this side entirely, right? Get about halfway done. Then go to the other side and do the same thing on the other side. Then when you're about halfway to 3/4 of the way done with this, go back to the other side. And you're going to want to keep going back and forth until both sides are complete. Until you can see that your new scratch pattern is going from the top of the bevel down to the apex, from the heel to the tip. A little tiny spot, because the tip is going to give you probably the most trouble because it's the thickest point. So most likely you're going to be able to hit everything. The belly might be an area that won't get hit perfectly, like immediately, in the tip. So just keep working until it gets out. Now, if there's one little speck right at the tip that just won't get hit, leave it. Leave it and get it on the next sharpening, or maybe even throughout the next 3 or 4 sharpenings. It's irresponsible for you to remove years of material to get a little speck that will never matter. I call them potholes because I look at them as like if there was a pothole in the middle of the road and the only way you could take it out was by grinding down the road, you'd have to grind it down until you reach the depth of the pothole. Because you can't fill it in, right? If pothole on here, we can't fill it in, right? The only way we can remove it is by removing the material. So we don't want to have to remove all them years worth of sharpening just to get that little speck. So just get it as good as you can. And hopefully you won't run into that, but you will if you're a sharpener. You'll run into it often. So just leave that and get it on the next sharpening. So now that I'm back to this side, because I've already sharpened it, mine's going a lot faster. This would take quite a bit longer the first time, so just know that your speed is not going to be my speed. Yours will be much longer. I've already done mine. So now once I can see my scratches are reaching my apex, and I can tell they are, I know they're reaching the apex, I'm going to do just a couple more minutes just to ensure that from heel to tip, it's really hitting. I want to make sure the last spot that's going to get hit, like say if this spot was the last spot that got hit all the way down to the apex, after that touches, I'm going to do like 1 or 2 more minutes just to ensure that everything is good on both sides. Now, if you struggle with seeing things, what you're going to do is get yourself a jeweler's loupe. I recommend getting one on a chain. You can hang it around your neck. Good ones will come with a light and a UV light. And then you can, get up close and you can look at it, and then you can see your scratches through the jeweler's loop if you're having trouble. Now, the cool thing is with something like this, the bevel's so big, it's very easy to see the scratch pattern. So it's the best case scenario, but it's good to have a jeweler's loop either way when learning or when sharpening, period. It helps you identify little things, and then if you're not quite sure, you can always look through the jeweler's loop. Okay, and then once we've reached the apex on both sides, and we know for sure we have, now we will move to the next stone. So far, the biggest thing is one, don't use a very coarse or aggressive stone. Number two, you don't get a burr. There's no such thing as a burr. You will have to identify with eyes, not touch. Touch won't do anything. You have to visually see this. So learn scratch pattern, understand it, and you can see the new scratches always because they're different, right? Like even these scratches from my first stone, they're going to be slightly different. Now with the second stone, it's not going to take you anywhere as long as the first stone. I say after your first stone's done, and there's no time limit on that because that's just until it's done. Once you're finished with the first stone, the next stone, you're probably going to spend about 60 seconds per side. That's it, 60 seconds per side. And you're going to work your way all the way through your stones. My favorite grit for tungsten carbide is 3,000 to 5,000 grit. I think that's the sweet spot. You can go a little bit lower than that, like 2,000 grit, but you're going to want to probably, strop it really, really, really good. Now, you can, if you're limited to your supplies, there are other things you can use. You can use lapping films, right? You can sharpen up to, say, 1,200 grit and then finish off with lapping films from there. You can do that. That will work just fine. So, just got to figure out what you got. But the goal is to start with a not so aggressive stone, but something that can actually cut so they can remove material and actually sharpen. And then just keep refining and refining. And because we're going to such a fine grit, the apex will be true, right? It'll be true because it's such a fine grit. So we're going to know for sure there's not going to be any microchipping or anything like that. And I'm going to show you how to know if there is. But as long as you're going to the grit that I'm saying, 3,000 to 5,000 grit, you should have no problems with that at all. When you see how fast this is going now, once you get done with your first stone, everything is much faster. We are already to our 3,000 grit. We're going to take 5,000. Never let your stone go past the tip. Never let the tip of the edge ever go past the center of your stone. I always just, as soon as this side of the stone hits the tip or goes past the tip, I stop. Because otherwise you'll roll off of the tip like this and it will round it. That is a thing that happens with any fixed angle sharpener, so always beware of that. Because when that happens, and it will, you will be very angry because it will round your tip. So now we are ready to move to our 5,000. Let me just double check everything, make sure all the scratches. We got a little speck at the tip there, but not a big deal. All right, 5,000, let's go. Again, never judge my timing by your timing. I've already sharpened mine, so this is taking me about 20% of the time it took me the first time. The first time I probably spent about 20 minutes on the first stone, just so you know. Maybe even a little bit longer, I don't even remember. See, I'm letting it curve right around, and then I stop at the tip. And yes, you can go back and forth. You do not have to do forward passes or reverse passes. You can go back and forth. back and forth. Now we're going to end with some forward reverse passes, because now that we're done, right? Now we're done. What we're going to do is we're going to go both sides. We're going to wipe the blade off a little bit. Wipe our stone off. Give it a little spray. Go back to the opposite side. Lay it on there and do a light pass following the edge all the way around. And we're going to do that about 5 times per side. You can go backwards and forwards. Just don't, do more than one, back and forth. And now we are going to move to 1 micron strop. I don't recommend going over a 1 or a half, either 0.5 micron, 1 micron, or 0.25. 0.25, 0.5, or 1. That's it. That's the stropping compound you're going to want to use for something like this. Make sure this is dry. It's looking beautiful. Now here's the thing, when you take this thing off, it is going to be on another level of sharp, guys. Be careful. It will ruin your month. You will go right to the bone with something like this. This is not something to play around with. You will get hurt. Don't just hand something like this to somebody. It's not, yeah. Don't. it's this thing, and I already know it's sharp, but this is the trick. To make sure we got everything out and everything's perfect, right? Just to make sure before we take it out of the clamp, we're going to take our nail, just the top of our nail, and we're going to put it on the edge. Now, be careful when doing this and just run it right up the edge. You should feel nothing. It should literally feel like wet glass. If you do feel anything, go back to the strop and then just keep stropping until it's gone. Okay, so I'm going to do it one more time. Yes, we are very smooth, like glass, because you can feel more with your nail than you can see through a microscope. There's things sometimes I can feel with my nail that I can't even see with my microscope. Like when it's a real microchip. So that's the #1 way, better than any magnifying glass or microscope, is your fingernail. And then there we go. And now, yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy, that is damn sharp. But it is that damn easy. It is not hard. It's very easy to do. You just need the right stones, right equipment, and understanding of what you're doing. This is incredibly hard. It's not steel. No burr, and you can't use a very coarse stone because it will just chip out, right? And now you're just doing more work, and then you're trying to get out what you're doing, and it'll just be a non-stop fuckery, like where it's like you're doing more damage than you're doing good. Start with something that's going to be a little bit on the finer side, and then work your way up. 3,000 to 5,000 grit. Like I said, that's where I prefer it. I personally I wouldn't even go lower than 3,000 to 5,000 grit. But if you wanted to, yeah, you can maybe do 2,000 grit. Now you can mix and match. If you have diamond plates up to 1,000 grit or 1,500 grit, you can get the 1,100, 3,000, and 5,000. Well, sorry, 1,100. 3,000 and 5,000, because a 1,500 grit diamond plate, these are finer than regular diamond plates. So even if you got to 1,500 grit with a diamond plate, go to 1,100 with this. Yeah, you could just jump to the 3,000 if that's what your budget's limited to, and then just do 3,000 and 5,000 and then strop. Or you can even go to lapping films. So you can mix and match. You just want to make sure they're diamonds, right? Make sure they're diamonds. Ceramic, can you use ceramic? You can. You absolutely can. But don't think you're going to be removing any material with it. You can only use it as a finishing stone. Round stones, do not use round stones. No round stones. When you hone this, you hone it on a flat stone. I don't care if it's going to be this type of flat stone, that you just have, or one of these. But when you hone it, theoretically, this thing should never go dull until it microchips. If it microchips, then yes, you're gonna have to go right back to the full sharpening. But if you've used your knife all day or during the day, when you come home, take your stone, lay it on the stone flat, lift it up until you hit the bevel. As soon as you hit the bevel, hold that angle. As soon as the apex just barely touches the stone, which you can feel that. I mean, because it's like hitting a wall. But once you feel it, hold that angle and do single passes per side. Very gentle. These are very gentle passes. Do that about 5 to 10 passes per side. And then do a couple passes on the strap. And your edge will come back over and over and over and over and over. I'm talking about, like, this is the type of stuff that not only is it going to stay sharp, it's going to stay nightmare sharp as long as you're doing this. As long as you come home after you use it, wherever you're using it at, strop it and hone it, you will keep this thing hair whittling sharp forever until it microchips. Once it starts microchipping because you hit something, or because you cut something you probably shouldn't have, or maybe it just is what it is, then you gotta do some sharpening. So I'm not gonna go through this in this video. Maybe I'll make it its own video, but sometimes people like to put a micro bevel on tungsten carbide or ceramic. In many cases, it's actually better because it allows the apex to have just a little bit more stability and prevent it from chipping. So if you are finding that while using your tungsten carbide blade, you're getting little micro chips rather easily, you should probably throw a micro bevel on it. So let's say your angle hypothetically is 15 degrees per side. You're gonna, after sharpening it completely, you're going to, after it's done and it's still in the clamp, raise your angle to say 22 degrees or 25 degrees per side, and then do another bevel right on the apex. Like I said, I'll do another full video on that, but that will toughen your edge bevel or your apex. What it is, then you gotta do some sharpening. You gotta resharpen it. But if you are just cutting regular shit and it's not chipping out, man, you can hone it and strop it forever, and it will just keep coming back over and over and over with a little bit of honing. The best thing to hone it on is a 3,000 or 5,000 grit bonded stone, whether it's hybrid or resin bond. Like I said, don't use metal bonded diamond, and don't use anything very aggressive as far as diamond plates. So, because when you have a bevel this size, the apex is so thin that a strop actually works. Like, when you have something really thick and it's a high angle, the apex is so big, it's like the stropping compound, this microscopic diamond isn't going to be enough to cut anything. But when it's very thin behind the apex, because the bevel's so big, now something like this can absolutely be effective. And I'm talking about very effective. Same thing with this. So unlike, with other stuff where you might feel like I have to just resharpen, nope, you can literally just do 5 passes per side, 5 to 10 passes per side on one of these stones, or the strop, or both, and you will come back to a freaky sharp edge. I'm telling you guys. So there you guys go. Work hard, stay tough. Until next time, peace.